Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. Today we're talking about a very strange phenomenon, which is when fictional worlds collide with our world. How would you like to meet Spider-Man, Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker? As strange as that may sound, these are things that have been reported, at least similar incidences with fictional characters. And as always on this show, I'm going to look at some of the metaphysical yet rational analyses about what might be happening here. So you don't want to miss this one. Definitely want to stay till the end of the video to hear what I think is going on. A quick shout out to Ediponjneko, of course, for bringing this subject up on the Facebook forums. And I think this will be an interesting one. Now, if you're new around here, or if you're a fan of this channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The absolute best way to support this work is by becoming a patron at patreon.com/afterlifetopics. At the $30 level, I will work with you once a month, even once a week, one-on-one if you want, to help teach you about having astral projection experiences, connecting with the other side, and all of that. So if you want to sign up, the link is down below. With that said, let's go ahead and look at a couple of these really wild case studies. Alan Moore, the creator of the character John Constantine from the comic book Constantine and also the Keanu Reeves film, claims to have met his creation on 2 occasions. In 1993, he told Wizard magazine, "One day I was in Westminster in London. This was after we had introduced the character, and as I was sitting in a sandwich bar, all of a sudden up the stairs came John Constantine. He was wearing the trench coat, a short cut. He didn't look exactly like Sting, but he looked exactly like John Constantine. He looked at me, stared me straight in the eyes, smiled, nodded almost conspiratorially, and then just walked off around the corner to the other part of the snack bar. I sat there and thought, should I go around that corner and see if he is really there, or should I just eat my sandwich and leave? So I opted for the latter. I thought it was the safest bet. I'm not making any claims to anything, I'm just saying that it happened. A strange little story." His second meeting with his creation was illustrated in 2001's Snakes and Ladders, an adaptation by Eddie Campbell, one of Moore's performance art pieces. Years later, in another place, he steps out of the dark and speaks to me. He whispers, "I'll tell you the ultimate secret of magic. Any blank could do it." Writers who had their run on the Hellblazer series have also admitted meeting the character of Constantine in real life. Original Hellblazer writer Jamie Delano also claims to have encountered Constantine during his run on the character outside of the British Museum. Peter Milligan saw Constantine at a party around 2009 and rushed after him only to find he'd disappeared. Next is Brian Azzarello, who also worked on the comics and once saw him in a Chicago bar, but avoided him, saying that the thing about John is the last thing you'd want to be is his friend. The next unusual case comes from an article on BeliefNet concerning contact with none other than Darth Vader. This came about through an automatic and Ouija board based medium in the 1980s. The story goes in the 1980s, a woman named Lark, not her real name, began experimenting with her friends, contacting fictional entities. She felt a strong compulsion to channel forth the real characters of Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, going so far as to say that she believed that Lucas was channeling actual galactic historical events and that the characters were real. So as this went on and gained some reputation, it attracted the attention of none other than famous ufologist J. Allen Hynek, who dropped out of the investigation, carrying it over to a man named Don Frew. Now, Don Frew had many connections in the science fiction and comic book world. And one person that he knew was an individual named David Prowse, who was in fact the man who played Darth Vader, at least Darth Vader's body, while James Earl Jones played his voice. Frew sent Prowse a query asking whether he would be interested in meeting the real Darth Vader, and Prowse decided that he would. So they met with the medium, who soon went into trance, and Prowse had the chance to begin allegedly speaking to the real Darth Vader. The result of the meeting was deeply disturbing to Prowse. He told Frew that Vader told him things about the character that Prowse had come up with to help give his acting depth, but which no one else knew about. Vader even described details about the interior of Prowse's home in England. Prowse went on to state that it was like talking to the real Vader himself. Prowse's experience, as the BeliefNet article continues, was consistent with the possibility of Vader being a thought form entity. He knew information that people involved with Vader knew, but that the medium would not have been able to know about. So there we had a couple of very unusual cases. One, of course, being Constantine, who seemed to actually come to life and visit the writers of that comic book, and Darth Vader coming through a medium. So what are the explanations about this? What might be going on? So I really think that there's three different possibilities. The first one is called, I guess you could call it telpes, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this would be a thought form. And this is something a lot of astral travelers have reported. Now, a thought form is most commonly constructed in a lucid dream state. And what this is it's literally just your mind is willing into existence what seems like an autonomous entity, but it's a division of your own thoughts and consciousness. So if you not believe in literally, but like really understand a fictional character, like you really feel like you could see yourself as a part of that consciousness, then your consciousness has the power to fragment itself a little bit and maybe even become that fictional character. And then you end up meeting him or her in a dream state. Now, the funny thing about the telpes is that they are not necessarily relegated to just being in a dream, because what people don't understand is the kind of flexible nature of reality. So an entity in a dream that exists in your own mind and then exists in those little self-generated realities has the potential to possibly even materialize as a autonomous entity outside of the dream state, for example, in the astral state. So in the astral projection world, you are more closely akin to being in this world. You're in a shared reality that can be quite physical. But there it's more subjected to, I guess, the non-physical or the thought spaces of its inhabitants. So a telpes could basically be born in the sense that it begins in your mind. It begins because you have a strong liking toward, let's say, a fictional character. And from that point, it moves into the lucid dream state, but it's still in this contained world inside your own mind. But then, as the baby becomes a little bit more and more autonomous, it begins separating from there into the astral spectrum, which is shared by other people, even though it's still linked up, synchronized to your own mind. So it's still kind of like an elemental, a golem, if you will, generated by your own thoughts, your own consciousness, your own sentience. And so from this point, other people on the astral will be able to react to it. And then from there, possibly through mediumship, physical mediumship, or even other metaphysical properties of when that world kind of meets up, synchronizes with this world, it's possible for such a thought form to graduate into maybe existing in this world as an entity that is existing in an autonomous way, but still linked to your own mind. So in a way, you still have control over it, but it's beginning to gain some of its own independent methods of thinking, and it might even in some way we don't understand, pop up in this reality, or become created through somebody who is into the occult, as in manifested, I should say, into this reality. So it sounds very complicated. There is a lot more literature about this, and a lot of people who make claims to have been able to succeed in creating thought forms. I think that a lot of lonely young men have created a lot of romantic interest thought forms. My personal opinion about this is that I don't want to say that it's a waste of time. I think it's very, very fascinating, but how much meaning can you get from an entity born from your own thoughts with only a minimal, if any, amount of sentient intelligence? Just like when you are lucid dreaming and you're meeting entities that you are creating in your own mind, you'll notice they don't have ideas of their own. They don't have their own life. And that sounds appealing to some of us, but eventually you begin to find that these types of entities, they just don't add that kind of meaning and quality of relationship as you would with a so-called real person, because it's in essence just yourself. But of course, these thought forms do have the potential to take on a life of their own, I believe. And in that case, maybe it's not going to want to be that identity that you created for itself. So you create the Spider-Man thought form, and once it becomes self-aware enough to branch itself away from your own consciousness, it might be like, why the hell is this guy making me dress up like a superhero? And it may then go off in its own journey, in which case, again, it kind of beats the point. So that's one theory. The other theory, this gets a little more complicated. It has to do with the multiverse. So this would be that these entities are not thought forms at all, but what it is it's literally that character from literally that fictional world that has entered into this world. And that almost sounds like what was happening with the Constantine case, with all those people working on that comic meeting the same character. So in the multiverse theory, every possibility that could exist does exist. And when you add the astral spectrum, then there's infinite possibilities of places, versions of this world, types of varieties of this world that you can enter into, manipulate, go through the timelines of infinitely, right? So as soon as you think of an idea, you can be sure that this world already exists in some form, somewhere, somehow. So that would mean that it's mathematically possible a universe created by an author, that universe, a character within it, might become powerful enough to actually bust through that dimensional gateway and find the origins of its creator. Like, let's say that you are a fictional character somewhere, and if multiverse theory is true, if all possibilities exist, then surely you are. So somewhere, somehow, somebody wrote you as a character in a book. Sometimes I feel that way, even in this life. Maybe I am the written manifestation of a very eccentric writer on some parallel Earth or astral version of somewhere, somehow. Now imagine if you could then somehow make contact with that origin. Maybe you would. So maybe that is what Constantine did. And it did seem like, with the Constantine type of situation, that they were playing by that rule of non-interference. So, he kind of showed himself, gave a wink that he's around, he's a real thing, but he didn't greatly interfere with this world, which makes me think it's an astral phenomena. So we know that residents of astral worlds, they are more advanced and more powerful in many ways than we are. And as a result of that, they abide by laws of ethics that they don't interfere with our civilization. So if an entity, a person, a deceased individual comes from the beyond into our world, it's usually very much based upon relationships and personal matters. You don't see them appearing and giving us the secrets of the universe or powerful technology or anything like that. So whatever the case may be, if Constantine did come out of that universe and was interacting with us, he did it through the astral spectrum, or it was all originating on the astral side, and maybe the writers created it first, and then it manifested itself as a real parallel plane on the astral, where all those stories are coming to life, and then those fictional characters created on the astral made contact with us here somehow, and were able to materialize briefly into our world. So it's some combination of the multiverse or the astral world creating a representation or replicating a fictional world, and then that world coming in contact with us. So two distinct possibilities there, actually, with a few differences between them. Okay, so the third possibility, and this could be the most rational explanation, kind of going off of Occam's razor, I suppose, is that it's spirits messing with us. So for example, Darth Vader coming through a medium may have actually been a spirit saying from this vantage point, look, I have the ability to pretend to be Darth Vader, and people will listen to me and think I am, and that'll be really interesting, funny, whatever it might be. Never underestimate to what extent those in the beyond will play jokes on us, mess around, do fun games, pranks, and things like that. So that is also a possibility. Even with the Constantine case, could be the same thing as well, not beyond the realm of possibility. So regardless of whatever it may be, these are very interesting cases, and it adds a level of excitement to this sometimes boring life. I hope it happens more often. And there is an experiment that I would like to do. So if you are a medium watching this and you would like to participate, get in contact with me at the contact info down below, and we can attempt to make contact with fictional characters and see if we can get to the bottom of it. Is it a telpus? Is it a parallel universe getting in touch with us, or is it just some prankster entity having fun with us? Or is it just a creation of the medium's own mind? Is it like a very young tulpus being generated by the medium? It's hard to say, but with some experimentation, maybe we can figure it out. So leave a comment down below or get in touch with me. Well, I guess that's it. I guess I better head back inside before I get sunburned. Thank you for watching this video. You can get involved at Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics on Facebook. I have a little Reddit group. Maybe some more communities coming out in the future. You can pick up books like Understanding Life After Death and the Afterlife and Beyond over at afterlifetopics.com or on my Amazon page. It's all there if you want to read books that I've written. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.